Good evening, everybody. It is great to be with you all again. Welcome to Friedman Adventures Podcast, live here from 22nd Street Landing in San Pedro, California. Mike Morrison, our general manager of the land, or what are you? The manager, right? He's over here. Do you want to walk in and say hi to everybody? Walk in front of the camera, Mike. Put your face in there.
Scare small children.
Mike's here, and of course, our special guest tonight, Alex Masumoto. Alex, it's great to have you here, my friend.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. You know, people can ask questions tonight, so we can talk long range. We can talk fishing the bays and the docks. You're good at that. We can talk about local fishing, island fishing. I want your 2022 forecast. I want some great tackle tips. And I could use $20 also if you got a little bit of extra change. Before we get into our questions with Alex, I want to thank some sponsors. Of course, we start with where we're at, 22nd Street Landing in beautiful San Pedro, California. Daiwa, who you see right there over my shoulder, they're our rod and reel sponsor now. Opsin Fluorocarbon. Opsin gets you more bites. There is no doubt about it. CCA. Out there helping to improve the ocean's environment and helping to make sure you have the right to fish. Fish Taco Chronicles, you see the magazine there. Sean Arnold was complaining, watching a show that was like 5 years old. There it is, Sean. And, of course, tonight we're going to have the Tackle Grab. Patreon members, it's $5 a month, so it's $1 and some change a week. And we'll have the Tackle Grab at the end of the show. Steve, what's up for grabs tonight?
We have a tackle bag going out, a couple jigs from Promar and Ahi, and some Daiwa swag.
Excellent. And I hope, Steve, we can get a little more enthusiasm out of you tonight. You seem down. Are you dragging tonight or what?
Definitely.
Why?
Busy week at work. Ready to go to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, well, this show will definitely put you to sleep. Not Alex, myself. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Please subscribe to the channel while you're here if you haven't already, and click that little bell. We'll let you know when there's new content, and we'll be talking about the Friedman Adventures charters this week. And a special shout out to Mickey Salinas, who dropped by. I like these too. Dropped by about 200 of these shirts. Se busca chupacabras, and we'll be taking those down to Mexico during Easter. So thank you so much, Mickey. Really appreciate it. And a shout out to Israel de la Cruz. He's going to bring down some more clothing. He's already brought a reel down that we're going to raffle off for funds for our Mexico efforts. He brought down a ton of clothing. So Israel, thank you so very, very much. All right, time to get into it. Alex, how are you, my friend?
Very good, thank you.
How's the tackle? Hey, by the way, those cookies, that cookie dough was...
Oh, you like that?
Man, good job. How long
have
you been
those
doing
for
that?
years, yeah.
I know, that was the best Christmas present I think I got this year. Thank you. How's the tackle business with COVID? I'm just curious, as you know, an entrepreneur, as a guy that has a business, this whole supply chain and everything else got to be making you pull your hair out.
Yeah, well, with COVID, it's just been the supply chain deal has been just killing us. I mean, we can't get anything. Even the domestic manufacturers. They're making stuff as fast as they can, and sometimes they have supply chain issues with guides or whatever.
Yeah,
and you know it's just it'll take us sometimes 2 to 3 months to get a rod from one of the domestic guys.
Wow.
Either UC or Seeker or CalStar. So you know it's basically we put our name on the list for a particular rod, and when they make them, they'll give us a call, or they go down the list and start calling all the stores that ordered that rod. So
people have been understanding about it, I'm sure, though. I mean, it seems like everybody's kind of getting used to this nonsense.
Yeah, everybody pretty much expects it, you know,
yeah.
If we don't have it in the store already. So, yeah, it's been very tough. The reels, I mean, Shimano hasn't had much for several months. And supposedly they're going to be getting some stuff in the end of the month here. So, and Daiwa's been short on stuff. Everybody's short on stuff.
Gotcha. All right, let's cut to the chase. Alex, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Right now, it's wintertime. It's cold. If somebody came in your tackle store, people come in all the time, and say, "Hey, I want to go fishing. What should I do? Where should I go? What are my options right now?" What are you going to tell them? And you have the bays and walking the docks and the surf fishing and half-day boats. You know, you have all those as long range. You pick one thing right now. What would you tell somebody to do?
Well, the average guy that comes in is usually not boat savvy or going out on the party boats. They want to go to the pier or off the rocks.
Okay.
And we set them up with some dropper loop setups or some soft plastics, so they can cast that, or a spoon like a crocodile or a twister spoon or something like that.
What pier would you send them to?
Well, I send them to Cabrillo. It's right here.
Yeah.
Right here in San Pedro. And
what can you catch there?
There's mackerel, sand bass, spotted bay bass, halibut. A lot of guys are targeting the halibut. And then I've caught sculpin off there. There's always like smelt or perch around the pilings and stuff. But most guys are targeting the bass and the halibut.
That sounds like a fun little day with the family. Take the kids down there. No one's getting seasick. Sounds like you can catch a couple fish. The weather's pretty decent now. It sounds like fun.
Yeah, you can social distance out there. You get the fresh air and some sun, and with exception of the last day or two. But it's the weather hasn't been that cold the last few days, and so hopefully we'll have some mild weather, and everybody can get out there and at least enjoy the fresh air and the birds and hopefully some fish.
Yeah. Now, fishing for halibut. Let's take that because that's a prize catch. I mean, that's something that's good to eat, kind of cool. So what is the rig you recommend, and do you recommend fluorocarbon or not?
Absolutely. Fluorocarbon, probably 15-pound, and then a drop shot rig with one of these Zoom flukes. That's been the most popular in the pearl white color. And they cast it out and they work it along the bottom, and those halibut jump on them.
How do you work it along the bottom exactly?
Just lift up, wind a little bit, drop down, lift up, drop down. They usually hit it when it's dropping.
Really? And do they catch quite a few there? There's a lot of halibut in there, isn't there?
Yeah. They're not all legal size.
No.
But yeah, they get a lot of halibut in there. I have several customers that do well in there. They also fish from float tubes. And one guy, he said he was up to 20 halibut already.
Recently?
Yeah.
Wow, that is really good. Steve?
So before we get into more talk about fishing, Alex, can you just go over your store? We have a viewer here, N6Un. He's asking about your store hours, if you sell surf, fishing bait, and everything else.
Where you're located.
Yeah, can you
Give
go
a big plug.
give it information, all the information on your store?
Sure. We're located at 245 North Gaffey Street here in San Pedro. I'm basically right off of the where Gaffey ends, or where the freeway. The 110 freeway ends onto Gaffey.
Really convenient.
Yeah, so we're on the way to the landings, the pier, everything. And I do have lugworms for the surf. I have frozen ghost shrimp, and then we have all the other frozen baits, anchovies, squid, mussel, and then I also have night crawlers and redworms and mealworms for the guys fishing Harbor Lake.
And you've got tackle for, like we were talking, the bays and everything, right up to long range, right?
Yeah, we have just about everything. Obviously, we can't carry everything,
right?
But we just try to keep all the stuff that we know is going to work in stock, and try to give the best advice as possible.
How long have you been doing this? How long have you been there?
I started working at the Rusty Hook in 1986.
Wow.
I was just a rod wrapper. And
who owned the store at that time?
Jerry Rilling and his wife Sharon.
Uh-huh.
And they were both LAPD officers. And she would come in, I think, she would come in the evenings, and Jerry would go and work nights as a policeman. And then Jerry would open in the morning. And Sharon would be at the police station doing what she did, and
so you had to behave yourself around those two, right?
Oh yeah. And I was doing most of the helping the people with or helping the customers pick out stuff, because Sharon didn't really fish, but
right.
she would be there to make sure the store was open.
And were those personal friends of yours, or how did you get that gig?
Actually, a friend of mine was wrapping rods for them, and I was wrapping rods at home, and we were talking one day, and he goes, "Hey, your rods look pretty nice. You do pretty good work. You might want to talk to Jerry. He needs somebody to wrap shop rods, just straight double wrap shop rods." And so I showed him my work, and he liked it, and so I started working there.
Nice. And when did you take the store over?
I took over the store in 1995. Yeah, and
they wanted to get out, and turned to you,
Jerry had started a rod wrapping facility, and he was wrapping rods for Butch Green, the Sea Stalker rods back in the day, and also for CalStar.
Yeah.
And eventually, when he wanted to completely retire, he sold that rod wrapping facility to CalStar. And so CalStar still has that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or Tackle Specialties is the name of the company. But yeah, and then, I took over while he was running the rod wrapping thing. I took over in the store and was managing that and helping everybody and wrapping the rods, and eventually started doing reels too. So... yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. Let's wind the clock back even further. How did you get into fishing in the first place? Who was it in your life that introduced you to fishing?
Well, my dad, actually our whole family would go trout fishing in the Sierras every summer for a week. And
you did the trout opener thing, or what?
No, it was like after school was let out.
Yeah.
In September or August, I should say, right before school started again, and we'd go there for a week and we'd fish trout, and then he started taking us out on the King Harbor skiffs.
Oh, that was fun, wasn't it?
And that back then the bonita were they were 4 or 5 pound bonita. All the time in the harbor there was no sea lions to bother you, and it was a blast. And
those were such fun days fishing those things.
Yeah.
They were like green skiffs, weren't they? Or
something like that. And then they had the little bait sled behind you with the live bait.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it was like $5 for a scoop of bait or something. If I remember, $3, something like that. Those were amazing times, right?
Yeah. And then later on, we were going out on the Redondo barge, and me and my younger brother and some of the other guys from the neighborhood, we'd have one parent would drive us down there and drop us off.
Yeah,
we'd go out fishing all day, and then another parent would come and pick us up and take us home. And we fished the barge for probably a couple of years, and started getting comfortable doing that.
Yeah,
and Then one day we went down there and the barge was closed, and we go, well, what do you fish? They go, oh, the half-day boat will take you out rock cod fishing. And so we had never done that before, and that was seasickness. My younger brother was in really bad shape.
Oh, God.
My buddy Stefan, we were out there, and we weren't feeling too good, but we caught our share of rockfish, and that really got me going on the
that also
on the
was
boats.
Very good in those days, right? You were either on the Redondo Special or the city of Redondo. I
think it was
right?
the city. Yeah.
God, those were good days, man. You could just load up on bottom fish in those.
I mean, I caught like four rockfish that day, but in between being seasick and
getting your guts out,
my younger brother wasn't fishing at all, and he was in bad shape, and my other buddy he was getting his rockfish. So yeah, we got started on that, and then we started fishing on the Seal Beach boats because they would fish rock cod all the time, and we'd go out.
So who
there.
are you fishing with in those days? Like Larry Moore on the
GW
too? And
GW back in the day. My mom would take and drop us off at the pier, and we'd take the tram down.
Yeah.
And get on the boat. But we used to fish 14-mile bank and get our salmon grouper and whatever else we could catch. And then after a while we were getting older. Me and my buddy Stefan, we were fishing, starting to fish on half-day boats.
Mm-hmm.
And and he started fishing with I think it was Mark Einemiller on the Fury when it was running out of ports of call, and then we started fishing on the Explorer 2. We started doing the overnights, and I met Mark and Paul down there at ports of call sport fishing, and they were working on the Sport King, and and me and my buddy would go out there and we'd deadhead, we'd fish, and then we'd scrub. So we did that for a few years, and I think when I was in high school, I started in the summertime. I would do a few overnight trips. I'd work as a deckhand on the which boat was that? Sea Sport.
Oh, right.
That was during the 82 El Nino.
Yeah,
and that was a lot of fun. There wasn't much money in it. I think we got $35 a day, and
my God, you were killing it.
And a handful of dollars for tips. And it was a very small handful, I might add. But Kent Cook was running that boat, and we were doing charters mainly, and so most of the people were beginners. So we do a lot of hook and hand and teach people how to fish.
Good fun stuff. Yeah, I remember when I started on the Redondo Special. That was in probably 74, something like that. It was $12 a day for a second deck, and I was just like, someday I'll be making that big $16 a day as first deck.
Yeah, we were going, man, on an overnight boat you get $50 a day.
Yeah, like wow, yeah, big money, right? That's too much. Back to the skiffs out of Redondo. Did you ever run over to the bubble hole?
Yes.
And did you ever see those yellows in there?
I never hooked any yellows there. I caught all bonita, but I remember one time we were down there, we were just fishing off the rocks, and I got a couple 14, 15-inch calicos.
Oh, that's nice.
Casting at the bubble hole.
So that bubble hole was a discharge from the Edison plant. It was warm water, and at times the yellows would just, when you rolled over that, they were stacked up like you can't believe it. And I remember one day specifically, I was a deckhand on the Redondo Special. John Dipley was the captain. And we had a count, we had 65 people, and I think our count was 3 blue perch and a mackerel. Horrible. Just brutal day. And we come back into the harbor, and we go over the bubble hole, and Dipley goes, look down there. So I look down, I go, they're just stacked, dude.
Wow.
So this is brutal. This is terrible, but this is what happened. We dropped the passengers off, right? 70 people or whatever it was with 3 blue perch and a mackerel. And then we had live squid.
Oh.
We swing back around to the bubble hole. The crew, right? I throw a scoop on that bubble hole, and it frickin' blows up. Just yellow. And we're out there hooking yellows, gapping yellows, just screaming out there. And these poor people, 70 people, are up on the pier looking out like, oh my God. I felt like bad about that, terrible about that. But that was amazing because the bubble hole is right there off that little pier. It's right off the rocks.
Yeah, I've seen guys hook yellows. Yeah. They didn't land them, but they hooked them.
Yeah. And on those skiffs, man, you could catch so many bonita, as you said, and they were all big ones. There were even guys who would go out there with the fly fishing outfits.
Right.
And do they remember that? Mm-hmm. And of course, the bubble, or the bubble and feather?
Yes.
That was huge in those days.
Yes.
Does that work? Does anybody do that anymore? Not really.
Yeah. Well, I still have guys that buy that stuff, so I'm assuming they're catching fish. They're probably catching mackerel, but it's still an effective way. That splash attracts the fish up, and they see that little fly, and they're on it.
We also, once in a while, would go outside the harbor, which you were not supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But you could go right outside the harbor and catch pinback sharks galore, all you wanted. And as kids, 12, 14-year-old kids on a boat out there catching sharks. That was so exciting. It was just something that was so captivating. Steve, I think you have some questions from our audience.
Yeah, so Fern Built is asking, I imagine this is because you have so many years of experience, but how can you tell the age of Tatty 45s? Do the old ones swim better than the new ones?
Well, the old ones were all, every jig was different. They were sand cast, and then they were they were ground on a belt sander, and so every one was a little bit different, and so yeah, the old ones, you either got one that swam real good or you got one that didn't swim well at all.
Yeah.
And so, it was kind of a crapshoot. And guys started, they started looking at them and everything and looking at the hips and the offset and all that. So
you mean before they purchase them?
Yeah.
Guys in the know, they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I've seen guys, they'd go through and they'd grind down, where the braze was in the ring. They'd be grinding down the ring just so they could get it that smooth inside of the holes. And guys would look at the size of the holes. They'd look and see if the holes were offset from each other. There was a whole bunch of different things. But yeah, the old ones did swim well, or the ones that did swim well swam great.
Yeah.
And when they went to doing pressings with a pattern board, or I should say, when they did the die casting later on. They tried to take some of the better swimmers and put that into the patterns for the die cast mold. But
and now they're uniform, right? So they all swim good.
Well,
much?
There's more than one shape.
Or
there's several shapes in that mold, that die cast mold. So you still can find variation in there.
And do you have a tip on how to choose the right jig, or what do you look for?
Everybody asks me that, and I
got some behind you. I think those are all tatties, aren't they?
I usually grab a couple off there, and they just kind of talk to me and say that's the one, and I don't really look them over real hard. For the most part, every jig will swim different at a different speed. Or perform best at a different speed. So you got to kind of throw it out there, and you wind it at a slower speed, and pick up the speed and all that, and look at the jig and see what speed is right for that jig.
Yeah. So you need to experiment a little bit, right?
Yeah, and the blunt nose. I mean, you look at some of them; they'll have a square nose. And the square nose ones generally are better at slower speeds, and the pointed nose ones generally are better at faster speeds.
And so, what species are you targeting with a slower speed, and what species are you targeting with the faster speed?
Oh, I had one trip. We were fishing calicos, and I was using one of those Army Green 45s, and it actually, it was a green and yellow. Yeah, it was a green and yellow. And I was just crawling that thing just enough to keep it on plane, and the calicos were just hammering it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
The slow retrieve.
Real super calico. Slow, yeah. Yeah, they were on it. That and I've done that several times where the slower speed worked well. But you have to have the jig that'll swim right at that slower speed.
Right. It's kind of counterintuitive, because I have found that to be absolutely true. An iron, that slow retrieve calico bass, love it. But we went to Catalina Island with Evan Salve, and we were fishing these giant swim baits. And so he said, just burn them as fast as you can. And they were biting the frickin' things. So it's weird, man.
Very interesting.
I thought, no, you're going to do like a similar kind of retrieve. And Evan goes, no, burn it. And I thought, I don't know if that's going to work. And, well, I mean, he knows what he's doing. He's over there 24 hours a day. And it worked really, really well. So it's weird. The fast retrieve iron, you're fishing yellows, bonita,
barracuda.
Although barracuda like a slow retrieve sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. And sometimes a little bit like a medium to medium fast. And I particularly like the fixed single hook jigs for barracuda, because the swim is a lot more erratic.
Yeah.
And I always did well with those. Tatty A1 and the green sardine pattern with a single hook.
Back in the day, we used to wire our irons. Is that necessary anymore? People they claim they swim better. Some guys, like Rick Effinger, who runs Marina Del Rey.
Yeah, Alan Fay said the same thing. He wired all his.
Do you still hold it?
Personally, I don't wire them. And of course, I don't want people to wire them, because then they won't lose them. But that's what keeps the tackle shops in
honesty.
Business. Yeah,
I like that.
But if you have one that you really like and it swims real good, you want to preserve that. So wiring it is definitely a help.
Yeah, and just for the novice. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Can you explain what wiring means
go ahead,
to someone that doesn't know?
Alex?
Oh, they'll put like an 18-inch wire leader, either with single strand, and some guys even use the 7-strand wire, and it helps the jigs swim better, or the rings swing better, instead of having the knot right up against the eye of the ring.
Flipping over to wahoo fishing just for a second, we're going to go into long range in some greater detail, but do you wire your jigs when you fish? Who, absolutely, or not necessarily?
I didn't, but I had lots of jigs to work with. And so...
But, I mean, if the jig swims better and you're not, wahoo are going to bite you off, it's probably a good idea.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, mostly single-strand wire for the wahoo, although the single-strand wire will curl up after you land a fish. After it's been pulled on real hard, it just curls up, and that's the stainless steel wire. But now with the titanium wires, man, what great stuff! It actually stretches, and it doesn't curl up after you hook a fish.
Do you have a brand or anything that you're crazy about?
What was it? What was the name of that? We were using Terminator. That was one. And I don't remember what the other one was. Not Too Kinky. It's KNOT Too Kinky.
Oh, Steve would not ever want to use that. He's more into the kinky one.
Yeah. And so, that titanium wire was great.
Alex, we have more questions from our audience.
A lot more questions coming through. Doesn't matter what you say is asking what your first rod and reel were for iron fishing.
My first... Well,
that was back in what, like the prehistoric times, wasn't it?
Just about. We all had longer hair, that's for sure.
Well, some of us had hair.
Yeah, some of us still have it. But anyways,
rub it in.
The first stick I built for myself, and I used it for everything. It was I think it was a Saber 665. Which was it was just the regular one, the 20 to 50 pound one, and I threw jigs with it. I didn't throw jigs well with it, but I did throw jigs with it. Yeah, it's 6.5 foot,
right?
And at the time, I wasn't very good at casting either. Now I just throw stuff out there, and everybody just marvels at. They go, "Gee, how can you throw that far?" Even with a short rod, I will.
Yeah.
But yeah, my first long rod I think was a 690J.
And then he's also asking now, what would you recommend for him? He doesn't currently own an iron setup. What would you recommend for him now?
Well, not everybody likes using the really long ones to begin with. I'd probably recommend a 7-footer, like a 670. These are the fiberglass models. A 670 or a 610 in the CalStar or Seeker. And then your in your graphiters, or graphite rods, something in a 20 to 50, and start with a 7, go to an 8, and then if you want to go longer, 9s and 10s. But those have problems transportation-wise.
And then what about reels? What would you recommend as far as a reel?
I started with a Jigmaster, good old Penn Jigmaster, lasts forever. I still have my first Jigmaster. Actually, I have several of them, but. A Jigmaster is fine. I'm used to the pace on winding with a 4-to-1. The newer reels that are 5-to-1 and 6-to-1 and faster, sometimes I have a little problem with them because I'll end up going too fast.
Yeah. But
of the new reels, your Toriums are a good choice. Don't cost a ton of money. The Penn Fathoms are a good choice. So yeah, it all depends on your budget too, because your Avid reels are kind of pricey, Accurates are pricey. So whatever fits your budget, but something that's going to be a 4-to-1, 5-to-1, and hold enough line to get you through.
Spectra with a top shot of mono or straight mono, or are you old school or what?
I'm kind of both, because I don't like casting the Spectra because it wears all the skin off my thumb.
Yeah.
So I will usually put on my jigging rods usually enough mono for a cast, so that I don't have the knot buzzing my thumb and all that.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'll put 60, 70 yards, maybe 80 yards of mono, and then all the rest is Spectra, because if you do hook a bigger one, you have the line capacity.
Cool. And then Jeff Yeomans is asking, would you agree that all jigs swim? It's just up to the angler to figure out, how to get the jig to swim?
For the most part, yes. I mean, every once in a while you get a dud, but for the most part, your tatties and your God, who else is making them now? Anyways, you're going to have variations in the jig where it'll work better at one speed and not as well at another speed. So it's something you got to kind of experiment and play with. But the starting point is the blunt nose for slow and the pointed nose for fast.
Awesome. Okay. And then N6 Yoon is asking, have you ever tried using feathers on a single jig tatty?
Feathers on a single jig tatty? No, I haven't done that because the feather will make the jig not swim as
it'll alter
erratically.
the way. Yeah, it'll alter the way that
because of the extra drag in the water.
And then Sergio Salazar is asking, I got a Talica 16 for my birthday. What application would you set it up for?
Well, a 16 is a good size. You can fish local and long range with it, depending on how you set up your line on there. If you put a lot of Spectra on, obviously for long range, but all my reels, I usually do that enough mono for a cast, and so I don't have the Spectra wearing all the hide off my thumb, and it's kind of a personal preference thing. So you can fish a 16 for anything really, because it'll hold enough line for long range, and it also casts well enough for local.
Great.
And fly line of bait.
And then Rob's Fishing Channel is asking, what are your lead times on servicing reels during the pandemic? It took him 2 weeks for Avit. Before, it used to take him a day or two to get his reels back when he got them serviced locally. What is your lead time?
Well, depending on what kind of reel it is, I'm a one-man show in my shop. So and right now I'm doing inventory for taxes. And so,
how do you have all your hair? That's what I want to know. A one-man show.
Yeah. So, anyways, my lead time generally, if it's not busy, is anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. But if it's your big internationals and stuff, it takes a little longer. So when I have a lot of customers, it's hard to crank through a lot of them.
All right, very good. Hey, but Arnie Man, he's up there, and he says, Happy New Year. He's down in Ensenada, and I actually posted 2 giant bonita. Those were like 10-pound fish.
Wow.
A beautiful big bonita. And he has a question.
Yeah.
He says, go ahead.
So it looks like he's asking, what do you think about the lures that have a double hook attached? Is it better than using the treble hook style lures?
Well, the double hook jigs were usually or primarily made for trolling, and if you notice, most of them don't have barbs, and so they were trolling albacore with those things on boat lines,
like baldies, right?
Yeah, the baldies and the Neptuna, and
right.
So and then also some of the bone jigs, but. Yeah, the double hooks mainly were for trolling, so I wouldn't. I mean, I assume you could cast it if you wanted to, but I don't. I've never thrown a double hook jig for a surface iron.
All right, Arnie's down there in Ensenada, by the way. Arnie Man on Facebook. If you want to charter with him, he's a great guy. Does a fabulous job. Steve, anything more? No, right? Okay, that's what you were telling me, right? No more questions.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow tonight. Okay, give me a break. So, you've been in this business a long time. La Nina means cold water. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a lot more squid kind of sliding down this way. That squid's been up north.
Right.
And now it's sliding down this way. So if you were to look into your crystal ball, and I understand that it's difficult to do, just, my albacore forecast, which we'll be doing again in March.
A-word. Oh, no.
The
Don't
albacore.
Say the A-word.
I'm not even going to talk about that yet.
That's a unicorn of the sea.
I know. I think I have to jump off of the docks into the water or something. I have to do some kind of sacrifice, right?
Yep.
Unless you want me to pluck Steve's heart out with an obsidian knife like the Aztecs used to do, I'm willing to do that also. But I want to talk more like the islands. Mm-hmm. What do you know what I'm thinking? White sea bass, halibut.
Sea bass, halibut,
what do you
yellowtail.
think? How's that look to you? I mean, you've been doing this a long time, so you get almost like another sense, an extra sense about it. What do you think? Are we going to have that sea bass start to slow? Are we going to get a sea bass season at Catalina finally?
Oh, I'm sure we will eventually.
Like
we're not into the
2022.
spawn yet. Yeah, we're not into the spawn yet. The spawn will be in the spring, and by then the squid will be probably floating at Catalina, and there'll be. I think there's all indications are you'll have a standard issue sea bass season. You'll get your yellowtail there. I mean, way back in the day, catching a yellowtail on the iron was you were the man if you got one on the iron, because there wasn't that many yellowtail back then. But with the squid, I mean, I've had trips on the Grande and the Fury, and we were fishing with a 3/4 ounce lead head and a squid on it, and you cast it in, count to 5, and swung. It was that good.
For sea bass or calico bass?
No, these were for yellowtail.
Yeah.
This was all yellowtail. And we hardly ever caught sea bass. It was all yellowtail and calico. So, I'm glad to see the sea bass coming back as well as it has.
God, I know.
And,
Back in those Redondo days when you were talking about, there was no sea bass.
Yeah. Everybody's going, what's a white sea bass?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just like you looked at that season that they had up there, Tucker McCombs and Sean Stewart and all the guys up there in the Channel Islands. They killed it last year.
Yes.
And boats that are fishing out of here on a 2-day trip, they can get up there. But the hope is that it's going to, I think, Santa Barbara Island probably.
Yeah, SBI will buy it.
Yeah, and probably Catalina. Mm-hmm. Are you thinking the same way as me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Catalina gets its share of sea bass every year, and it's been getting better. So, yeah, and SBI always bites pretty well in the spring, too. So I think we'll have a pretty good season. As long as the squid's around, we'll do well.
And what do you... Oh, pardon me, Steve. Go ahead.
No, I just was going to ask, you guys are talking about the offshore fishing if La Nina happens and we get all this squid. What about the guys that are fishing off the piers, the jetties?
Good question.
How will that affect them? Because a lot of guys... They don't make it out to the island.
Right,
so.
surf fishing also.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you anticipate maybe La Nina affecting that fishery?
Maybe good barred perch fishing?
Well, yeah, it'll be good barred perch fishing. See, anchovies like cold water. Sardines like warm water. So you have the ebb and flow of these bait fish every year, and actually they eat each other's eggs. So
dirty rats.
Yeah, and so you'll have cold water years, and you'll have a really good anchovy in the bait, as opposed to the sardine.
And we've been seeing more and more chovy.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because we're starting to get back to that normal cooler water in the wintertime than we used to, or than it's been. We keep getting these El Niños, and it's great for the guys that like fishing sardines, but for guys that fish anchovies, and also the cold water's better for the kelp too. The kelp likes cold water, and so it grows a lot faster, and you get more cover for the calicos and all the other fish.
And so, yeah, another one.
We got a ton more questions.
Let me just ask one question, and that is, you better give the right answer too. I'll tell you. What do you think about my first charter this year? On the Amigo, only 14 anglers departing June the 15th when the limit does what?
Goes to 3.
Ooh,
3 sea bass a
first
person.
day. I thought, with all this cold, me and my predictions, but with all that cold water, with all that squid, man, I want to be on that date when it switches over. It's during the week. You get away from the boat pressure. Fingers crossed for a big trip on that one. That could be a good trip.
Yeah, I could. It could very well be.
That's the right answer, Alex, by the way. Yeah, thank you.
But
forget about that $20 now.
Well, you can send it to me later. But as long as the squid's around, and all the indications it'll be around in the wintertime here and in the spring. So yeah, it should be very, very good.
Sounds like Steve's got more questions.
We got a ton of
audience.
questions.
This is
coming
awesome.
in.
I love it.
Nick Ramirez is asking, what island is your favorite for calico bass and yellowtail fishing? Local islands.
Nick bought a brand new TV to watch Friedman Adventures tonight. Nick, it's great to have you with us.
I like Catalina. There's a lot of really good spots along the kelp at Catalina, and yeah, there's, as long as it's not getting hammered too hard, it's very, very good fishing. San Clemente Island's better at times, but it's a lot further drive. Costs a lot more to go there, and the fishing for calicos is really good there. Lots of kelp and lots of rocky areas for them to hide.
I like that area right around that China Point area there. That's such good calico fishing there.
Yeah, I was there last August on the Independence, and unfortunately the rock was parked between where the fish were and the boat, and so we'd hook them, but we weren't landing them. We were catching these big yellows. Yeah.
And Jeff, our buddy Jeff Yeomans is asking, what is your go-to style for fishing yellowtail? Fly line, surface iron, dropper loop? What do you like to do to catch yellowtail?
Personally, I like fishing surface iron because you get the visual. You know, your tatties, your candy bars, great jigs, and yeah, I love fishing surface iron.
Color important or not? We've had a big controversy about this. Most people say color doesn't matter.
It really doesn't. I tell guys, use what you have confidence in. Lately, it's been that mint thing.
Yeah, right.
Mint sardine, mint and white, straight mint. You know, so
you know, a lot of people say, yeah, they're biting the mint, and you know why they're biting the mint? Because that's what everybody's throwing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like Leroy, who I decked with on the Searcher, he wrote on my Facebook page the other day, if color is so important, why is the jig that I have that's got all the paint chipped off, it gets bit every time, so effective? It's the way they swim is what his opinion was.
Exactly.
And do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you'll see guys, you know, the old timers, and they'll have a jig with almost no paint on it.
Yeah.
You know, and they're getting them. So.
And Sergio Salazar is asking, what is your go-to setup for yellowtail fishing?
Well, my go-to setup would be my 90J with the whatever reel of the day is. It'll either be an Avid or a Talica or a Speedmaster or something like that, and 65-pound braid, 40-pound or 50-pound mono, and a good swimmer, a good swimming jig, and I'll throw jigs all day if I have to, and because this is going back now. I used to fish on the Sport King a lot with Jim Peterson, and me and my buddy would be up sitting on the rail in the bow, and we were catching barracuda, and we'd sit up there and not have to touch a anchovy all day, and we'd be catching releasing barracuda. I mean, we'd keep our limit, but we'd release a whole bunch of fish. But yeah, I'd rather catch them on the jig than on live bait. But I do my share of live bait fishing too.
And does N6U is asking if Rusty Hooks currently runs any charters?
You got a trip coming up, don't you?
I have a trip coming up in I think it's July 7th. It's a 2.5 day on the El Capitan out of Point Loma Sport Fishing.
Well, let me return the favor. And that's going to be the most wide open trip in the history of Point Loma Sport Fishing.
We're hoping to do well.
All right. I just want to
do
return
well on
the
those
favor.
bluefin. The bluefin will be around, and I picked out those dates for the moon phase. And Alan Fay
he's awesome,
unmatched. The guy's hardcore. He wants to kill fish, and he will die before to get you on fish.
Yeah, Alan's awesome. Him and Joe Chait were buddies, and Joe ran the Pegasus and the Conquest, and Joe had a tremendous amount of respect for Alan, and I love Alan. And yeah, you're right, man. That guy fishes hard, and he's good.
Yes, I mean I've fished albacore with him. Yellowfin during the El Nino years, and he's just amazing.
How do people sign up for that? Come by the shop or?
No, it's not a charter. It's actually I'm just going on that trip. I'm telling guys, this is the trip I'm going on.
That's a smart way to do it. Then you don't have the headache of
I don't have the time to be booking everybody and sending the money in and all that and chasing people down for money.
Oh my God!
And so
Steve doesn't help me.
And I've had my share of times where I had to eat spots.
Yeah, me too.
And
they don't taste very well.
Yeah, and being a one-man show, I just don't have the time to do that anymore. When I had an employee, it was easier, but I just can't afford to lose money on a trip. So I'm just telling guys, this is the one I'm going on. If you want to go with me, call the landing and sign up.
Fred Dempsey, this is he wants to know if we have any intel on what's going on with the Fred Hall show.
As far as I know, it's back on again.
Yeah, I believe it's back on as of now. I don't know who's going to be attending it or if it'll be the same Fred Hall show that we've experienced in the past.
Right.
But as far as I know, it's happening in March.
Yeah, because it was on, then it was off, and then it's back on again. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. We don't have any plans to be there right now, do we, Steve?
No, not as of now.
Right.
I know CCA is going to have a booth inside.
Oh, the CCA. Well, hey, that thing's all crooked behind him.
The CCA banner.
Steve, what's wrong with you?
Technically, I'm on the board.
That's right. Well, I see you at those events.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to MC something at the Compton. Is it the Rod and Gun Club?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I forget. May, I think so.
Rob's Fishing Channel is saying the bluefin have been around for nearly a decade. You guys have been fishing so long in terms of cycles. How much longer do you think this cycle will last for the bluefin?
Rob's Fishing Channel. That is a good question because now you add La Nina and get the cold water. What's that going to do to the bluefin?
Well, it brings the anchovies.
Right.
And bluefin like anchovies. Right, so do albacore. But, albacore is just a pipe dream.
We'll have a prediction later on this year.
Guys predict it every year, and every year we don't get them. But
I know.
But the one thing that I've seen over the years is you can't count on anything anymore. As far as because back in the day you could count on the barracuda to show up. They'd start biting in the latter part of March into April. And then the sand bass would start biting, and it would be full speed, wide open, full limit fishing all the way until August, and then it would shut off, and then the yellowtail and the albacore would be going by then, and everybody would fish that. But now, if you get a week out of the barracuda, you're lucky.
Yeah.
If you get a week out of a sand bass spawn, you're lucky. And so you don't have that
used to
anymore.
Be so ridiculously wide open.
Yeah, and we probably caught too many of them.
Maybe
it kind of collapsed the population. But everybody has their own theory on that. My theory was with all the years of drought that we've had, there's been no fresh mud on the seafloor, and they like digging into the mud and making their nests to have their babies. But actually we're still in drought situations. So who knows? I don't know if we'll ever get the migration that we used to get. I mean, it was sick. I mean, you remember.
Oh, God.
It was absolutely sick.
And I'm talking about from the Santa Monica Bay, like you go up to El Segundo and catch them.
Right.
Giant ones down here, down there in San Diego.
Yeah, Channel Islands, too.
Channel Islands, Ensenada. I remember being on those sport boats out of Ensenada, and you'd go back, and there was just a cloud of sand bass. You just dropped, you could see hundreds of them.
Yeah. I was amazing. Out on when Alan Fay owned the Prano. I was out on a trip with Jim Shimizu, Tatty Lures, and we were out there drifting, and we're going, what's going on? They go, there's sand bass all over the place down here. And you'd look out and you see these big schools of sardines moving around and the sand bass behind them.
Just chasing the bait.
And you'd have to, and they didn't want the live ones. When you put it on your hook and throw it out there, you wouldn't get bit. But if you took it and you slammed it on the deck and then put it on your hook and threw it out there, boom, you get bit right away. So it was kind of strange, but we used to we used to kill a lot of sand bass back then.
Oh God, it was so wide open. Steve, more questions?
Yeah, there's a ton coming in
What an
here.
audience.
Peggy Peters.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Peggy Peters is asking, how do you fish the federal breakwater differently now compared to 20 years ago? How has that fishery evolved?
Peggy, that is an outstanding question. Alex?
Well, most guys are fishing straight braid. We were using the creepy crawler on a weedless lead head, but you know your big hammer swim baits, and back then we were using Worm King too. But we were fishing it at night, so it was a little different. During the day, a little bit more difficult to get those big fish out, because they hide in the holes during the day, but at night, oh yeah, it was really good.
And then one thing I want to add, just because I love fishing the breakwall, is 20 years ago they probably didn't have trolling motors, saltwater trolling motors like they do today, where now you can cover a lot of ground. Mm-hmm. It's basically like freshwater bass fishing out there. Right. You're covering a lot of ground while you're making casts, and you just have.
Have you had a lot of success out there?
Yeah.
And what's your preferred method of
the
attack?
Creepy crawler is still one of the go-tos for fishing.
Yeah, that tomato pepper creepy crawler.
Yeah, and you can get them at the Rusty Hook. Yep. Mm-hmm. And they work really well. And like Alex said, at night, that's when you get the big boys. Yeah. That's when they come in.
Yeah, and you can fish the straight braid. You don't have to worry about fish being line shy. You hammer the drag all the way down.
Yep, no drag.
You hook the fish. You point the troll motor out to sea and gun it. And sometimes it's a standoff. You know, you're not moving. So
what size bass are you guys catching there? Like big fish, right? Like 3 to 5, and then some bigger than that?
Yeah, the average at night, if you're fishing at night, the average is probably 2 to 3 pounds.
Nice.
And then you'll see some 5-6 pounders. The biggest that I personally have gotten off of that wall is around 7 pounds.
That's
7
a beautiful
And that was
fish.
on the inside of the wall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not on the outside.
Is the inside or the outside better? Or
I think the outside's better.
Yeah.
But it's weather permitting, obviously.
Right, exactly.
But I had one customer get a 12 out there.
Yeah.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
You see them. I mean, it's not something that you don't see often. You see, I mean, the guys that fish it at night, they see double digits all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Those are beautiful fish.
And a lot of the time it's zing, we call it zing pow. You hook the fish and it just goes zip zip pow.
Yeah.
Breaks off because it got you right into the rocks.
Yeah.
So or I've seen some guys straighten a hook.
Yeah.
So on the lead head.
Jeez, those are nice fish.
So more questions coming in. Abel is asking, besides a crocodile, what is also good to throw off the surf?
Abel, I want to tell you that I saw all the stuff you donated, girls' toys, saw that go out to so many kids in Cabo San Lucas when I was down there. Thank you.
Absolutely. In the surf, most of my customers are buying the gulp sandworms. They call it perch crack, because if the fish are there, they'll eat it. And then I've had some guys have success with the gulp ghost shrimp, and then your standard 1.5-inch motor oil red flake grubs, on a small lead head, or actually on a number 6 hook and Carolina rig. So,
and the Lucky Crafts are becoming really popular, right?
Lucky Crafts are great, but they're expensive.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You don't want to lose
$20, right?
Yeah, you don't want to lose too many of those.
You're talking about Lucky Crafts in the surf?
Yeah.
I mean, we were down at Playa Saldamando, which is just short of Ensenada, and all the local Mexicans showed up, and they were all fishing bait, and they were all like, hey, man, they're going to bite. There's some big perch. Fish close to the wall. It was all rocks, and they said, that's where these fish are. And Martin Padilla was with me, and he was throwing a Lucky Craft, and I did not see one of those guys catch one fish, fishing mussels and clams. And I'm sure it works because that's what they're there with. But he had 4 or 5 of these big, beautiful bar perch biting the Lucky Craft. Wow. Whoa. I mean, it was like his second cast. He got one. I was so stoked to see it. And that's our little piece of heaven down the Baja Coast, Playa Saldamando. My friend George Saldamando owns that huge stretch, and there's all kind. You can look it up, Playa Saldamano, Google it, and you can get a place. But there's some really good surf fishing, some big bass, and all kinds of stuff. Steve, more questions?
Yeah, we got a ton of questions coming in, guys.
Man, you are popular.
Izzy DLC is asking, do you use fluorocarbon when jig fishing? Why don't we address surface irons first, and then maybe yo-yo irons?
Israel de la Cruz, thank you.
Personally, I don't use fluorocarbon with jigs because it's moving so fast. Usually, it's kind
of a reaction by it.
Yeah, they see it move. It's flying by them so fast. Generally, they don't really notice it. And yo-yo fishing, it's going even faster. So yeah, I don't usually use any fluorocarbon when I'm jigging.
Okay. And then Rob's Fishing Channel is asking, what do you guys think of the new rockfish limits? I stopped fishing during the pandemic. I was shocked to find out it was going to be 4 reds and a chucklehead. I fish Channel Islands for rockfish.
Yes. I sent a message to Wayne Cotto, who's the head guy on CCA in California, and he says in his opinion they had zero science and they just did it because they could. They lowered those limits, and so
controversial. Wayne with a controversial response to that.
Yeah,
no, that's I get that when it's frustrating. I mean, don't get me into this lack of science stuff.
Yeah,
because that's going on in all kinds of things.
Well,
nowadays.
He said that National Marine Fisheries Service didn't do a survey that last year, and so they just said, well, we'll go ahead and make it 1 fish on the chuckleheads, and those things are pretty plentiful. Generally, you get those in the shallower water than the reds, but yeah, I don't get it.
So let me just go into something else that kind of goes along with that, and that's the grunion. Did you hear they're going to limit the amount of grunion you can take, and now they're going to close June down because I'm not sure about this. Okay, I'm just going to tell you what I heard. Some woman who has like a grunion hunting page on Facebook or whatever reported to the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, please. We didn't see much grunion. It's really reduced now. Meanwhile, I'm over there in Surfside. You can't even walk down the beach. There's so many. Honestly, you can't walk because you'll kill them all. And I have video and everything else. So based on that, the Department of Fish and Wildlife said, oh, well, we need to limit this. And my understanding is that's actually going to happen, that the most grunion you can have in your possession is 30 from now on. And I'm not arguing to kill everything in the sea, but I mean it's nice to be able to go out there and get a bunch of grunion and have them for bait for the rest of the year. You can freeze them.
Right.
Dave Hansen says everything bites them.
Yep. Everything likes grunion. Everything likes squid.
Yeah. So that's going to happen. And now I believe they're going to close down in another month. I believe it's going to be June. And so here we go. I mean, that's the science, because some woman said I didn't see that many grunion this year.
They went off of that. I mean, back in the El Nino years earlier, when they shut down cowcod. The guy goes down in the submarine. He doesn't see any cowcod. Well, he was right in the middle of a very strong El Nino.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't any cowcod.
Warm water, they don't like it.
Yeah, there weren't that many rockfish on the reefs. Because the bait didn't like the hot water. And so he goes, oh my goodness, there's no rockfish. And then it's when all these rockfish regs started going in.
Right.
And
same thing, Mark Paisano says that with regard to bait. He said sometimes guys will go out, these guys that are looking, and they'll go and they'll be in 10 fathoms of water where the bait has been, and there's no bait. And he said, yeah, they moved out into deeper water,
They do have fins. They
swim. And then they start doing, it's just frustrating for sure. And none of us, maybe Steve, wants to see these things become extinct, because we all make a living off of this, and we want to see future generations. So we're not arguing to let us, but we are arguing for some science. And the retort always is, we don't have the money to do the science. We don't have the money to do that.
This closed stuff haphazardly. Because they just feel like closing it because they think it's bad, and with no science, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So it's they need to take their fish and game license money and do the science, and it'll be a lot more fair.
And by the way, on this 4-tier engine thing, remember I told you I was going to reach out to that politician? I'm not going to mention her name because I don't think that's fair. I'm waiting for a response from her. I did reach out. I'm waiting to hear. I do believe she's going to try to help us in this. Just my gut feeling. And if I put her name out and had everybody write her, that's not how I want to do it. That's not fair. So I'm going to let her respond, hopefully this week. And then next week, hopefully I'll have something on that. Steve, any more questions?
Yeah, we have a couple more. So Seed to Sanctuary is asking, if you had all the money in the world, what would your dream surface iron setup be?
Well, I'd probably fish and this is what I have already, a graphite 90J, because the 10-footers are too long for me. I'm short. I'm short and I have short arms. I can't throw 10s. 9s I can throw. 8s I can actually throw even better. But I like fishing the 9-foot rods. A 90J graphite with probably either a Talica 16 or a Avid LX 2-speed. Those would be my go-tos. And then braid and some enough mono for a cast.
Awesome. And then Jeff mentioned, I thought they were worried about the sheep's head. So
that too.
Yeah.
That's another one.
So
yeah.
Is there any more information? Do we know any more information on what the status
Have you
of
heard
that?
anything on the sheep's head? Because Wayne called me up and said, "Hey, tell everybody to lay low on the sheep's head. Please release." That was toward the end of the year, because if not, they were going to put some restrictions this year. So, do you know anything about that?
I'm out of the loop on that.
That's possible, Jeff. Good question. I'm not sure. I'll look into it for next week's show. I'll talk to Wayne and see if he has any information. Or, Wayne, if you happen to be out there listening, you're not doing anything tonight, so you decided to watch our show, throw a comment in there and let us know.
I'm hoping, because they already released the information on the rockfish
regs,
right. I'm hoping that the sheephead were not affected, at least this year.
Yes.
But we'll see.
Right. Okay. Let's jump over and talk about long-range fishing.
Okay.
Do you have a trip on the Independence this year?
I do not.
Most years you had them for several years, right?
Yes. And what was happening was our trip, due to changes in the calendar every year, it gets earlier and earlier. And we're at that point, we're into the end of July, which, if there was albacore around, it'd be great. But
how many day trip?
It was a 7.
Oh, okay.
And unfortunately, the end of July, first part of August is when or at least the way I've experienced it, that's when the great whites are just getting to Guadalupe, and they're hungry. And all they want to do is make baby great whites and eat. And so they're just, you're losing 90% of what you're hooking.
Yeah.
And it's just a hate mission, going over there at that time of the year. And then Alejos can be kind of hit and miss that time of the year too.
A little early, right?
Yeah. We used to do fairly well, first 2 weeks of August if we were in there, we used to catch pretty good yellowfin, 50, 60 pounders. We'd get our share of wahoo and then the yellowtail. But things changed. The yellowfin quit biting, and the wahoo weren't there. And so it was just the yellowtail at that point. And then not this past year, but the year before, we went to Alejos, and we're on the Alejos bank. We're fishing these giant scads for bait. And
what's a scad for everybody out there?
It's in the jack family, but it's kind of like a mackerel.
Yeah.
And these things were like 3, 4, 5 pounds, and you're putting a big monster hook in them, and you're dropper looping them down to the bottom on the Alejos bank, and we were hooking these big, huge yellowtail. They would fight so hard, you're having trouble even with 80 and 100-pound gear.
God, that sounds like fun.
And then the sharks would swarm on them.
Oh.
And so we were landing 10%, 5%.
Yeah.
Because every fish was getting eaten by the sharks. And they were different sharks. It was those brown Galapagos reef sharks.
Yeah. They're very highly aggressive.
and they just swarm on your fish. And I mean, I lost the 2 biggest yellowtail I've ever hooked because of the sharks. They just, I mean, one of them I got the head back, and it was just this massive head.
Oh my God!
And the second one was fighting even harder, and then the sharks got it halfway up. But you know, so it got to the point where we weren't doing very well, and so I was hitting up the independents to get me later in the year, and you know, they're a busy boat.
They're full.
They were all full up, so we couldn't get anything later in the year. So I just said, you know what, I think I'm going to bow out until we can get something later, like in the latter part of September or October.
Yeah, yeah. So all right, so we've talked about like that time doesn't seem to be a good time. If you had to pick a time for a guy that's out there wants to get into long range fishing, what time of year, how many day trip, what can you catch?
Well, right now with this, I mean, we've been blessed with these bluefin for the last how many years. I would start on a 2.5 or a 3 day trip.
So you're talking about the guy that's going from fishing the Freedom, now he wants to make a jump up.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean, you can do a day and a half and try to get your feet wet with that. And the only problem with day and a half is you don't have as much time.
Right.
And if the fish aren't biting well that particular day, you don't do very well. But, you know, it's been pretty good. And, you know, a 3 day or a 2.5 day is a good start because it gives you plenty of time. It gives you the chance to sleep on the boat and, you know, get into the meals and all that, that routine. And then that prepares you for trips that are longer. And then the next step up would be a 5 or a 7. And I would go later in the year if you're going to Guadalupe. But
get away from the sharks.
Yeah, get away from the sharks, and then from there go to a 10 and fish Mag Bay and the inside and Alijos, and then if you have the money and the gear by that time, go on the longer trip. But actually, you don't even have to have the gear as much anymore because most of the boats have loaner gear.
I know. Yeah, I mean,
and it's all good stuff.
And it's most of the time it's free, right?
Yeah, you just have to pay for the line.
Yeah,
you have to pay for your top shots.
Yeah, that's a deal if you ask me, right?
And if something breaks, they just give you another reel.
I know.
or a rod.
Yeah, that is great about that. Yes, Steve.
Stephen Ennis is asking, if you do get taxed by sharks in the middle of a fight, do you keep reeling for the fish or do you let the shark have it?
I keep reeling because usually I'm fishing an expensive hook and I don't want to lose the hook and the fluorocarbon and all that. So I just keep winding and get it in as quickly as possible. And then I'll give it to the shark after I get it in. But yeah, it's I just keep winding. I had a great white actually come out of the water and dive on my fish. I had one that was over 100 going. Oh, wow. And everybody's screaming at me, wine. And finally, it kept diving on it, and finally got it. And it's just like, pow, breaks off, and just go, you know, what can you do? There's nothing you can do. And it's really awesome watching a guy or watching somebody else's fish getting eaten, but when it's yours, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, for sure. But it is cool seeing somebody else get it, right?
Oh yeah, you see those great whites come out. It's like, wow, it's just an awesome sight. It's one of the benefits or the extra benefit of going to Guadalupe.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, because you see all these documentaries on white sharks, and people never get to actually see them face to face, but we get that view, that view of that spectacle of nature, as I like to say, and it's really something that never leaves you.
Well, it's like being on a 15 or 16 day trip and you're a Clarion and seeing the humpbacks jumping out.
Oh God,
that's an awesome sight.
Yeah, seeing those whales breach like that, something you'll never forget.
Yeah, they'll come close to the boat and you look down and just holy cow.
I got one more question here from Tim P. He's asking, what is your favorite yo-yo jig?
My favorite yo-yo jig? Well, the Tatty 4.0 and the Salis 6X Junior are my go-tos.
And why are those your favorite compared to some of the other yo-yo jigs that are out now?
it's what I have. It's what I've always used. You know, I don't have a lot of these new jigs. I mean, you got these steel baits and all these other. I don't have them because frankly they never call me, see if I want to sell them. But yeah, the Tatty and the Salis has always been a go-to.
You know, something that seems obvious to maybe like Steve and myself and people who've been doing this a long time, but just for the guy maybe that's getting into this, hooking your fish when you're fishing the iron. What is the right way to do it? Some people just feel the need to rear back on the rod and try to set the hook. What do you want to do? You just want to turn the handle, right?
Right, and especially with wahoo. I mean, wahoo will humble you.
So why especially with wahoo?
Because the wahoo will literally grab the jig like a dog holding a bone, and he'll come all the way to the boat. He'll run with it, take line, go all over the place. But he doesn't have the hook. And you'll get him up to the boat, and he just opens his mouth and drops the jig, and it's just like, what? I didn't have
That's not hooked. Fair.
You know? But yeah, you have to keep winding, and when the fish is running away from you, you can feel free to hit him a couple times to make sure the hook's in them. But yellowtail generally will swallow the whole thing or hit it pretty good, or they'll hit it with their head, and a lot of times you snag them in the side of the head or in the eye or something like that. But yeah, just keep winding, and when they start pulling drag, then you can swing. But not until they pull drag.
And wahoo, you're fishing yo-yo irons?
Yeah, you're fishing the you're fishing the Raiders.
Yeah.
And the and I like using the 6X Junior once in a while for that.
Surface iron ever for wahoo?
Absolutely. I've thrown surface iron with treble hooks. Everybody's gone, you can't catch wahoo on a treble hook. Well, go watch me. You know, and you don't have to wind as fast when you're using a surface iron for wahoo. You're just going to swim the jig like you're fishing barracuda. It's just when you get hit, you got to really crank hard and drive that hook into their mouth, because otherwise they just let go. They feel the tension and they let go. So
you got to pay attention, because when they let go, if you're really pulling, that jig's coming flying back on the boat, isn't it?
It can, yes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you got to pay attention to what you're doing, absolutely. And then with the wahoo also, you got to make sure you're stopping. If you're not bit, you want to stop the jig right before you get to the boat, because they'll come flying out of the water with it coming after that jig.
That's incredible. Have you ever seen that?
I had one. I was throwing a surface iron. I think I was throwing an Iron Man jig. It was, one of their SS Candyman.
Iron Man. That was Dick Uranga, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I brought it in, and Joe Krishy was standing next to me. We're on the qualifier, and I was winding the jig, and this wahoo came out of the water, and he said, I could have snagged that in the air with the gaff.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so yeah, they can be very, very dangerous. I saw one come out of the water. A guy was lifting his bait out of the water, and it was a kite bait, and it came flying out of the water and it actually hit the bottom rail and bounced off and went. But if it would have gone through, it would have taken his legs out.
Well, and you're talking about fish that bounce back in the water, but there's been stories about fish going through the galley window, and
yep.
You know, pagan people. You know, it's and that mouthful of teeth.
Yeah,
it's a dangerous situation.
Can be a very dangerous situation, because those teeth are like razor blades, and the way they're set up almost like a pair of scissors. And so, yeah, you got to be very, very careful around
Steve,
wahoo.
I have a trivia question for you. What member, the wahoo is a member of what family of fish?
I would assume like the mackerel family.
You are 100% right. Oh, I thought I had you there. I thought you were going to say something crazy like, I don't know, like a herring or something.
Yeah.
Any other questions up there? So back to our long range situation.
Actually, sorry. One question from Rob's Fishing Channel.
Yeah, Rob's all over it tonight.
What other countries have you guys fished in besides the U.S. and Mexico?
You first, and then I'll pop in there.
I have fished in Palau. which most people haven't gone to. But
You got me beat there.
back in the day, the former owner of the store, Jerry Rilling, he was him and a partner were trying to set up a fishing business going to Palau, and so a bunch of us from the shop went with him, and that was an unbelievable experience. That place is so beautiful, and
That's in the South Pacific?
no, it's above the equator,
Uh-huh.
but it's the last set of Pacific Islands before you get to the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
It's way out there, and
Yeah.
and it's a U.S. trust territory, so they use the U.S. dollar. Everybody speaks English, and it's one of the top diving spots in the world, and that's what most of their tourism is diving.
They probably have some World War II wrecks around there.
Yeah,
They
there's
dive and
actually
all
a
that.
zero on the reef,
Uh-huh.
and we dove on that. You know, it's in about neck deep water for me. It's chest deep for most normal people, but yeah. There's a zero, and then there's tanks and
Oh, wow.
live rounds, live ordnance on the island. Yeah, so there's a bunch of World War II wreckage there. Absolutely.
Where else have you fished? Mexico, right?
I fished
Do
Mexico.
you drive across, or do you ever go across the border and fish, or did you do that?
I
in the
used
past?
to in the past. We used to go to Ensenada. I would do those bonsai trips.
Yeah, me too.
You know, get off work, drive down, get our Mexican insurance, go to sleep in one of the neighborhoods in San Isidro in the car, and then once the sun came up, cross the border and drive down to Ensenada.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, we had some great rockfish trips and yellowtail trips down there.
Oh, God, and the barred perch fishing is really good down there. I tried to go with Steve, but I can't get him out of TJ.
Yeah.
It's a mess, let me tell you. Horrible.
But yeah, I've also, I mean, I fished a little bit going cross country. I've fished in Kansas where my in-laws live.
That's kind of another country.
Yeah,
No, I'm just
kind of. It seems like it sometimes.
Yeah.
But, and where else have I been? Gosh, haven't been to Hawaii yet. Just changing airplanes, but yeah, Palau was a very, very fun experience, and you know, there's such a wide variety of fish because of the reef. It's a coral reef surrounding the island, and every evening we'd go out and we'd be throwing surface iron for the jacks. You know, off the beach.
That's so much fun.
Off one of the. It was called the T dock. It was a seaplane ramp, and we'd get up on the edges of that, and we're all throwing and we're hooking fish.
Oh, I love that.
And you're
kind of fishing.
catching the jacks, catching barracuda, so yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I spent 3 weeks out there. It was a blast.
All right, so I got Australia. I fished. I fished Fiji, Panama, Costa Rica. I lived in Costa Rica I didn't fish when I lived there, though. I was a lay missionary for the Catholic Church. So I was goofing off with kids all the time, teaching them English. Costa Rica. I've fished the Philippines a little bit, not much. I was teaching, so I was screwed up with that. Where else? Mainland China, but that was like these stupid little, just goofing around with that. Taiwan. Where else? Panama, did I say? Fished. We had that with David Choate. We talked about that last week. I was on the Royal Star for 7 or 8 days, and that was a lot of fun. A lot of Mexico, up and down the peninsula. I've driven that peninsula 20 times, 30 times from, up here. In fact, I took a bus one time from frickin' Acapulco. I fished Acapulco a lot because I taught there also. Acapulco to frickin' Mexico City. Oof. And then, well, that's 6 hours.
Yeah.
Then to Tijuana.
Oh, my.
72 freaking hours. My brother and I turned our airline to, I go, hey, it'd be cool. Let's take a bus. And that was back in like 86, something like that. So there was no bathroom on the bus.
They actually had wheels on the bus?
Freaking those guys, man. Those freaking bus drivers. They go 100 miles an hour. There was the backup driver, and he had a girlfriend, and the driver. And the backup driver and the girlfriend would go down, they'd stop, and they'd go in the luggage thing to sleep or do whatever they were doing down there. And then, like, every 4 hours, they'd stop and they'd go, 15 minutes, 15 minutos, you got 15 minutes to eat or go to the bathroom, and we're out of here. And that was fun. It was fun, and then it got brutal. And then toward the end, like when we started to hit Mexicali, so you're beelining for Tijuana, you've been doing this for 72 hours, the bus driver was going 160 miles an hour. Woo. And we were all like, go. Like, it was like NASCAR. He'd had it. We'd all had it. He was like, I'd rather die than do this any longer. And we were just flying on these buses like Tres Estrellas de Oro and Flecha Roja, those bus lines. And it was like $45 Mexico City to TJ back in that time. And it was a lot of fun. Yes, Steve, you have a question? No question.
Yeah. So I've also fished. I fished in Japan a little bit.
Well, there you go.
When I was over there. And then I've also fished Clipperton twice.
Yeah, that's a French atoll. Oh, that's actually a Costa Rican.
Yeah,
it's off Costa Rica.
I don't know who owns it.
I think the French have it. Yeah, Steve.
Israel is asking, have you guys ever fished Cedros Island?
Not from the island. I've fished it from long range boats. Yes. Yeah, lots of yellowtail, sea bass, halibut, calicos.
Yeah, I've fished it same as Alex, long range in Israel. I got to tell you, I took my kids there quite often, Philip and Patrick, and oh my God, I mean, I was with Tommy Rothery on the Polaris Supreme. We used to do a Father's Day trip with him every year, and you just look out, Israel, you could walk on the yellowtail. It was amazing, wide open, big yellows, all you want. That's a fabulous island to fish. And now the long-range boats, as many of you know, cannot fish there any longer, but there's all kinds of ways to do it. And one way I want to try, you can fly into Cedros, but I want to go to the coastal area. Aponga out there is not that far. And Brad Phillips, who used to run the First String, he's down in that neck of the woods now. He's talking about April for me to come down there and fish with him, and I'm definitely thinking about doing it. I would like to do that because one reason, this goes back to my roots, like never stop fishing. I don't know how much you can fly back, fish, 50 pounds or something.
Yeah.
When you got your car, you can take back all you want, man.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
As long as you have enough ice to make it back.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely want to do that. And it's a fabulous place to fish, Israel. Maybe someday, Steve, we'll have a Friedman Adventures tour down there and do that whole thing. That would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. There's so many places around the world. I know that in Australia we're catching those coral trout, barramundis, and trevallies like off the reef in Fiji. Right. God, that's fun fishing, And I love going like to Palmas de Cortez in Baja California, and I love going out on the boats. I like marlin fishing. I like carp, and I like it, and I like everything else, the dorado and the roosters. But man, like you were talking, I like walking the beach with a crocodile and catching those jacks. Sometimes jacks, a rooster,
needlefish.
Yeah.
Those damn things.
I know. But it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a kick.
And you're in paradise.
Yeah. It's nice warm water, and, you go in knee deep, waist deep, neck deep, whatever you want, and catch some fish.
Yeah. Now, our surf fishing around in this area is pretty good at times. I mean, I'm over in Surfside, so I get lazy because I can walk out the front door and I'm fishing. But, man, we have some great yellowfin croaker fishing, and I love catching those things. And they have a very distinct – when you hook one, you have one. They kind of like it's a distinctive –
You ever have one jump?
Heck yes. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're fishing down there and see halibut jump out of the water all the time. You know that. So there's that, and then there's corvina, and now that we're into the wintertime – it's barred perch, right?
Right.
So let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people will fish the grubs. We talked about fishing the lucky crafts. If you're going to fish bait, what pound line, fluorocarbon, and what's your preferred bait?
I'd say 6 pound.
So go really light.
Yeah, definitely fluorocarbon. And sand crabs are always a good choice. That's the natural bait, and then the bloodworms, lugworms, and even the gulp sandworms. Always a good choice. So yeah, and you just got to get it out there and let it float around or wave around in the surge, and the fish are out there in that whitewater, and they're getting the stuff that's getting dug up by the surf.
When you're fishing bait, what type of rig do you recommend these guys try out?
Well, for the surf, a lot of guys use trout gear. They're using like a 7-foot or even an 8-foot spinning outfit. Like I say, 6-pound. If you're fishing the Lucky Crafts, usually you want to use 12 or 15 because you don't want to lose them.
No kidding.
But yeah, with the natural bait or with the gulp stuff, 6 or 8 pound and like a half ounce or 3/8 ounce egg sinker, and you get and cast it into the whitewater. Everybody's back in the day they used to get the 15-foot rod and cast it out beyond the breakers and everything, and all the fish were in the whitewater. And you'd have fish in 2 feet of water, even a foot of water. They're chasing around those sand crabs.
Yeah, and that is certainly the case with Corvina, because you can be like you got water up to your knees, and you're making a cast, and guess what, man? Something's bumping into your leg.
Yeah.
Happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
Scares the hell out of you.
Speaking of Corvina, we used to fish Salton Sea.
Oh my God!
And it was just single-tail grubs on a quarter or 3/8 ounce lead head, and we were casting those things. It was really fun. We'd get
different Corvina, right? These are orange mouth.
Yeah, the orange mouth Corvina, and we'd be out there and we'd see the guides out there. I forget the guy's name, but anyways, the guide services out there, and they're fishing on their pontoon boats, and me and my buddy Stephen were in his skiff, and we're sitting there swinging away on these Corvina, and those guys are fishing live bait, and they're not catching as many as we are. So it's kind of funny.
But that used to be epic fishing, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I haven't done that in a long time.
You're too young for that.
I was talking to one of the guys at work, and he used to do it, and it's pretty much decimated now.
Yeah, it's done, right? It's over.
Yeah, well, with the drought and the salinity gets so high that the fish don't breed.
Yeah.
So,
are there any of those fish in there at all?
I would say they're probably still there. It's just like I say, they're not breeding. And then they have the tilapia.
Right.
They put those into the canals, and I've seen die-offs of those things. When I used to go out there and duck hunt, you just see piles of these dead tilapia everywhere, and it was because it got too cold for them, and they'd all start dying off. But yeah, those I think the fish are still there. It's just they're not as plentiful as they used to be.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Tim P is asking, what is your favorite knot for braid to fluoro or braid to mono?
Well, I got kind of a knot that I accidentally happened upon. I was trying to tie a Tony Pena, and I started doing it, and it was wrong because Paul Medina on the Independence was showing me how to do a Tony Pena, and he's going, "You're tying it wrong," and I'm going, "Man, but this way's so much easier, and it doesn't break." And so I call it my version of a Tony Pena. It kind of looks like a Tony Pena when it's all tied, but it's tied differently. And it's been a very good knot for me. I haven't had anybody come back saying they were breaking it unless they broke it on purpose, if they were snagged or something. But it's been very good for me. But it doesn't really have a name. I just started doing it.
So it's a version of the Tony Pena, basically.
Yeah, it's similar, but it's different.
And then Rob's Fishing Channel is mentioning, I've been wanting to go to Alaska for a long time, but every time I compare prices, the best value is always SoCal. It always seems to be 2 times the price and with less options, luxury. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've never fished Alaska. I've always wanted to go there too. The problem is when the fishing's good there, the fishing's good here, and
you're in business.
I can't leave, so I never went. But Jerry had a friend up there that was running. He had Vader Charters back then. I think he's since retired, but they'd go up there. Actually, Jerry had time to go because I was in the shop, And so they'd go up there and catch halibut and salmon and all that stuff. But yeah, it's very expensive, and you're very limited on what you can catch. I know the lingcod has a slot limit.
Same with the halibut, I think.
Yeah, and the halibut too, and then the goldeneye, you're limited like one fish a season or something like that.
And then the king salmon is just like one fish.
One fish, and the silvers you can get a few more.
Boy, these Alaska lodges are going to be thrilled with you two guys promoting the hell out of the fishery up there.
Yeah, sorry guys, but it is very expensive, and it's one of those things that sure everybody should do it at least once. Someday I'll get out there. Maybe
I'll go with you because I've never gone either.
Yeah, but I know guys that have fished out there, and they're all complaining about the limits.
Oh, really?
The limits are so restrictive now that they go, it's not worth it like it used to be.
I've got a funny story about limits, by the way. I'll tell you in a second. I've always just gone south because I like the weather. I speak Spanish. I like the fishing down there. My kids have been up to Alaska several times. They love it. They absolutely love it. All right, my story on limits. Brian Shaw, who used to play for the LA Lakers.
Right.
So Brian, he fishes, I hope I'm right on this, Waterfall Lodge. He loves that lodge, and he fishes that all the time. So he was up there. I don't know how long ago this was. It's quite 15 years or something like that. He drops down, and he catches this lingcod that is 60. I mean, it's enormous, and it's the best freaking day of his life. This ling comes up, he can't believe it, and the guy looks at him and says,
"You gotta let it go.
We're out of season." And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "Tomorrow the season's open. Today." And he's like, "What? How much is the fine?" And the guy goes, like $10,000. He goes, "I'll write you a check right now." And he goes, "No, I can't do that. I'll lose my license." And he said he literally went down in the bunk room and threw up. He was so disappointed. He loves to fish, and he likes to catch big fish. And he literally threw up. And Brian is super nice guy, but I'll never forget that story. I mean, one day before he gets his giant lingcod up there in Alaska, and I believe it was at a waterfall, and they couldn't bring it on board. They had to let it go.
Just take
Pretty
a picture
brutal.
and let them go.
Oh, my God. Do you have any intel on the bar perch fishing right now? I'm going to go out and get some intel tomorrow morning, actually. I'm going to go fish it.
I haven't had anybody doing it, so it's at least that's been coming in the shop. So,
I'll let you know tomorrow.
I haven't heard anything, yeah.
Surfside was just kind of was slow this year. We could never get it going. I mean, I didn't fish it as hard because I was busy, but, the yellowfin croaker bite, we didn't see much of that, and it was just a slower kind of year. And I'm a big guy because I'm lazy, mostly, Alex, but I fish a crocodile. I walk up and down the beach, and I throw a crocodile. I catch halibut, I catch all the yellowfin croaker I want, but there are times when fish are on bait, and I'm not catching. And I watch these Vietnamese guys, they come over there and fish a lot, and I mean, you go by and look in their bucket, and they got all these giant spot fin croaker. And I said, what's the deal? And, we're fishing worms. And they actually dig down there for sandworms. And that's a pain in the ass, let me tell you. I mean, you can dig, and you'll see them, and they go, they disappear really fast.
Disappear really quick.
But those guys work hard at it and put their time in, and it works. I mean, because it's a natural bait.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fish are keyed in on it. And so it works really, really well. So that is something I would tell everybody out there that wants to surf fish for sure. Anybody else up there? No? Are we wrapping it up?
I think so. We're getting there.
Oh, I hate to wrap it up. Anything else that you want to talk about or tell people? I mean, the Rusty Hook, you've been there for so many years. I know. What days are you closed?
During the winter, I'm closed Sunday and Monday. And in May, usually I start my summer schedule, and I'm open on Sunday for half a day. But we're always closed on Monday.
What time in the morning are you open?
10, banker's hours.
Oh, banker's hours.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you close at what, 6?
6:30. 6:30. So, yeah, and I used to be open till 8, but when I got married, the wife wanted me home, so she didn't want to wait that long to eat. So
you didn't tell her to eat without you? You'd get killed, right?
No, because I did the cooking.
Oh, okay. You're like me, yeah. You strike up that deal where you do the cooking. Does she do the dishes, or do you do the dishes
Sometimes.
too? Oh my goodness. Steve, can you put up there, because rather than me go through all the charters that we have this year, number one, I have a video that I posted last night. People can watch that, but could you put walkwithphil@gmail.com? And if people send me an email, I'll send them the list of our charters. But we have 2-day trips on the Amigo, 2-day trips on the Pride, and then we have 3 full-day trips on the Malahini this year out of H&M Landing. That's a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We had a great time with Bill Wilkerson. And Bill, I believe, is going to be here February 2nd. A lot of people love Bill, so that should be good. So just send me an email. Steve put it up there. walkwithphil@gmail.com. And I'll send you the list. I'd be happy to do that. Steve.
And if they're following us on Instagram, they can send us a message right on Instagram, and you can answer them that way as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Instagram or our Facebook page, Friedman Adventures Facebook page also. Alex, it's been such a pleasure to have you here. I've learned a lot. Your enthusiasm for fishing is infectious. And you don't mind if people just come down there and chew on your ear a little bit if they want some advice?
No, if they want advice or they want to learn knots or anything, we accommodate as best we can, depending on how busy it is.
Right. But you've got people down there like drinking coffee and hanging out every once in a while, don't you? It's kind of a little social thing down there.
Yeah, we have a couple chairs.
Do you ever bake those cookies up for everybody, or just send them home with the cookie dough like me?
Now I send them home with the cookie dough because I just don't have the time to because it takes several hours to make all those cookies, and they're better when they're fresh anyway. So.
I forget who it was, but somebody put on my Facebook page, because I put a picture up of the cookies after they were cooked, and somebody put, Alex should offer coffee and a cookie, charge for it, and I'll bet people would hang around a lot longer. That's what you need, is something else to do, right?
Yeah. Well, and then the other problem is parking. Sometimes I have a jiu-jitsu studio next door, and they fill up that parking lot when they have a class going. So sometimes parking's kind of dicey, and if you come in and the parking lot's all full, I just tell guys park behind them. If you're only going to be here for a few minutes, pick up something and go. And because sometimes that parking lot is absolutely packed.
Yeah. And Eric and Tony from 22nd Street Landing, you two guys thought I was going to forget to give you a shout out. I promised I would do it. And there you have it. All right, are we doing the tackle grab now, Steve?
We actually have one last question.
Please, okay. We'll stick around as long as people want to ask questions.
Fred is asking, what's the best recipe for surf perch?
I don't know.
I got one.
You got one? Go ahead. One of my go-tos is what is it that they make a Montreal steak seasoning, and you can actually make a marinade from that. And I soak the fillets in that. I use this for all the fish, and soak it in there, and then throw it on the barbecue. And oh my goodness, it is really good. And then with perch. Panko breadcrumbs and frying it, you can't beat that either.
So. Right, I totally agree. Mine comes from, not actually my wife, because she doesn't like to cook that much, but she was the one who told me, I remember long ago, she goes, don't you just like to get the whole fish fried? And then, you take it and you pull the meat off, and I'm like, what? No, I want a fillet. I don't want to deal with the bone. I hate the bone. Boy, in China, that is a mess. These little bones. And all I was just,
they steam it.
They thought that I hated fish there, but every fish had 6,000 bones in it, so I don't want that.
Yeah,
I'll have more of the raw horse meat, which I did eat in Shanghai. Delicious. But what was it? Oh, so the whole fish, Fred. I like that. They do it in Mexico a lot. Just deep fry the whole fish, and then you got your little pedazos de limon, little lime on the side, salt. And then you just pull the meat off the entire fish, and it is so freaking good that way. I love it that way. Yeah, they cook it that way over here at Port Sacal. I don't know if they're still doing that, but years ago they did, and I had it that way. Well, Martin had it. I told you caught those big barred perch down in Playa Saldamondo. Martin did it at Tony Lozano's place, La Huerita in Rosarito, and man, it was to die for. It's so good.
Cool.
See?
No.
And wait, Dale. Mahi trips posted on their website. Oh, Thank you very much, Dale. So, some people were having trouble booking our Malahini trips earlier today, but Bill Wilkerson got them on there. So all our Malahini trips, you can book them now, and I hope you do. If we fish the Coronado Islands, you do need a passport, but the time of the year that I have the trips are probably going to be all offshore, and I'm sure Bill has it up there whether you need a passport or not. My guess is probably not. We'll be offshore, and last year, Bluefin, Dorado, yellowtail, we had some really fun, awesome offshore fishing last year. It was really a lot of fun. Anything more, Steve?
That's it.
All right, tackle grab time.
One thing I do want to mention before our tackle grab, Rocket Dog just signed up for
Rocket Dog,
Patreon.
thank you.
And then Sergio Salazar and Alfredo de la Merced signed
Those
up.
three guys just signed up?
The last two signed up yesterday, and then Rocket Dog just signed up today.
Love you guys. Thank you. So Steve and I have to, find some way to eat. So,
so they're all included in this drawing here.
All right, excellent. So I'll take care of this. Here we go. We're spinning right now. No, we're not. Yes, we are. The tackle grab. Alex is going to throw in $5,000 worth of tackle also, right, Alex?
Man.
Yeah, thank
Who's
you
Alex?
so much. I really appreciate it. And our winner tonight is none other than Ted Havel. Nice. And I actually know Ted. Believe it or not, he was a student of mine. Weren't you, Ted? I think he was a student of mine at Bishop Montgomery High School back in the 80s. And he's a great guy. Ted, congratulations. You have an incredible... I held this up last time, and then I looked at it, and I couldn't see anything. So there it is anyway.
I think it's too bright. But anyways,
yeah,
Ted...
it's getting too much glare.
Yeah.
And Steve, we have a package here that you wanted me to mention that is going out, right?
So this is Tracy's package from last week.
You want to throw it to me, or you can bring it? All right, so Tracy, what was her last name? Sunshine.
Yeah.
Tracy Sunshine, you're going out right now. All this beautiful pack is full of tackle. Patreon members, $5 a month. How can you beat that, Alex? You can't beat that.
Beat it.
I'll tell you, $5 a month, that means $1 and some change every single week. And you can win big, just like Ted did, just like Tracy did. And we thank you all very, very much. All right, for Alex at the Rusty Hook, get over there and say hi to Alex. Buy some tackle. Get the benefit of his knowledge and expertise. He's a great guy. When I told Mike Morrison you were coming in, he said, he's got to be one of my favorite guests that you've had. And so...
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, it's so good to see you. Thanks for spending so much time with us. And thank you all. It's always great to be with you. Another Friedman Adventures podcast. Remember to follow us on Facebook, please. Instagram. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube and hit that bell. We'll let you know when there's new content. Check out our charters. Become a Patreon member. And let me just thank some sponsors here at the end. 20 Seconds 3 Landing, where we are coming to you from Daiwa, our rod and reel sponsor. We're so proud to have Greg and Daiwa on board with us. Man, that is really something great. Opson, Greg Brown, he's a great guy and putting out a wonderful product. You mentioned Wayne tonight from CCA, doing a great job. Fish Taco Chronicle magazine. And, of course, we'll thank Alex tonight and the Rusty Hook.
Yeah,
for all of us here.
We're on Facebook, too, so make sure and like our page, too.
Excellent. Facebook, you can find the Rusty Hook. For all of us here, Steve, myself, and... Oops, I hit myself in the mouth with the microphone, Steve. I hope you have that in slow-mo. For all of us, thanks again, everybody. Take care. Have a great night. We appreciate you joining us. Take care.